this is the very first episode of my true crime series. I'm so far calling it V-tective because I'm a VTuber. I'm doing detective stuff, kind of just makes sense. However, I'm not fully sure on the name. If you have an idea for the name, feel free to comment it below. Or if you like the name of it as it is, feel free to say you like that too. Anyway, Jack the Ripper was probably the most notorious serial killer there ever is. I mean, even if you're not into true crime, you pretty much get the gist of it. Some things I forgot to mention in this, just a part of my personal theory. You can feel free to skip ahead if you're not interested in my opinion. Is that a lot of true crime cases and murder cases, typically, I don't know how to say this, it seems like police and detectives don't really seem to care that much when the victim is a sex worker. Typically, you find that when a serial killer starts murdering, they typically target sex workers because, nobody ever seems to notice or care, or even when they are noticed, it's not taken that seriously. It's seen as like a victim blamey stuff, like if you didn't want to get murdered, you shouldn't have done a dangerous job. So, it's, I just wanted to point that out because I know I failed to mention that could also play a large role in the fact that this case is unsolved. And anyway, there's a lot of people who are speculated to be Jack the Ripper. Some from reasonable and others from far-fetched. Feel free to tell me your theory and who you think Jack the Ripper is. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode. I almost forgot to take the thing off. Hello, Charlie here, and today we're doing a true crime series. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it yet. Lately I've been thinking V-tective. I don't know. I'm not sure. Just a thought. Not sure what I'm going to call this yet. Today we're doing Jack the Ripper, because I thought this would be a good place to start, and I'm mostly interested in doing vintage cases anyway. Alright, sorry I'm so awkward. Let's get started. The Jack the Ripper's murder occurred in I'm so sorry, I'm so nervous, I'm getting tongue-tied. The Jack the Ripper murders occurred in East End of London in the year 1888. He killed at least 5 prostitutes, mutilated their bodies in a way that indicated the killer had knowledge of human anatomy. The killer was never captured and remains one of the world's most infamous criminals. Now let's get on to the 5 canonical victims. It's widely believed that there's more victims, but we won't go into those. Maybe we'll go into those another time, but I think we should mainly focus on the 5 canonical victims for this one. The first non-victim is Mary Nichols. Her body was found in the gateway of Bucks Row, which is now known as Durward Street, on August 31st, 1888. Later that day, she was identified as Mary Ann Nichols, better known to her family and friends as Polly. She had separated from her husband and 5 children in 1888, and after that she came into a downward spiral of poverty and alcoholism. She was known as an unfortunate woman who turned to casual prostitution in order to raise money for a place to stay, to eat, and to feed her drinking addiction. She was last seen alive by her friend Emily Holland by the shop of Junkin on I know how to read, damn it. Osborne Street. and Whitechapel Road at 2:30 in the morning on August the 31st. Mary was drunk and boasted to Emily that she made her lodging money 3 times over but had already spent it. Concerned at Mary's drunken state, Emily tried to persuade her to come back to Wilmot's with her. Mary refused, telling Emily that she has to get her lodging money somehow, and stumbled off along Whitechapel Road. Yeah, true crime, yeah. We're doing Jack the Ripper today. Concerned at Mary's drunken state, Emily tried to persuade her to come back with her. Mary refused, telling Emily that she has to get her lodging money somehow, and stumbled off along Whitechapel Road. That was the last time Mary was seen alive. At 3:45 a.m., the body of a woman was found lying next to the gateway of Bucks Row, a 10-minute walk around the corner where Mary and Emily had spoken earlier. Oh no, an ad, I'm so sorry. I have no clue why it's like that. I tried to set it up to have as little ad as possible, but Twitch somehow is determined to make my stream mostly ads for some reason. I'll try to see if I can fix it again somehow. But Twitch doesn't seem to be listening to me. Mary's throat had been cut to the back of her spine, a wound being so savagely inflicted that, according to some reports, it had almost severed her head from her body, as well as she was disemboweled. And I'm not sure if this is true, I only found one site reporting this, but when her family was identifying her estranged husband allegedly shook his head disbelievingly and whispered to her, "I forgive you as you are and what you've been to me." Not sure how true that is, but that's what I saw in my research. Our next victim is Annie Chapman. 2 days later, the murderer struck again and would murder Annie Chapman on Hanbury Street. Like Mary Nichols, Annie had also been allegedly seen in a downward spiral due to alcoholism and left her husband John Chapman and her children several years previously. John would periodically send her allowances, though, until his death in 1886. By September 1888, she was living on and off at Crossingham's Lodge on Dorset Street in the Spitalfields. She appeared to have enjoyed a cordial relationship with the other tenants, and Timothy Donovan, the duty keeper, the deputy keeper, I know how to read, remembered her being an unoffensive soul whose main weakness was her fondness to drink. However, following a fight with another resident at the lodging house, Annie received a black eye and had a bruised chest and head. At 5 p.m. on Friday, September 7th, Annie met her friend Emma Pollard on Dorset Street. Annie looked extremely unwell and complained about feeling too ill to do anything. Amelia met her again 10 minutes later, still standing in the same place, so by then, Annie was trying desperately to rally her spirits, saying, "It's no use giving away. I must pull myself together and get some money, or I shall have no lodgings." Those were the last words Emily Palmer heard from Annie Chapman. At 1:45 a.m., Donovan sent John Evans, lodging house watchman, to collect rent for her bed and found her a little tipsy eating potatoes. She wearily replied, "I haven't got it. I'm a little weak and ill, and I've been in the infirmary." And he then went to Donovan's office and implored him to allow her to stay a little longer. He told her that if she can't pay, she can't stay. Annie turned to leave, but then turning back, she told him to save her bed, that she'll be right back and that she will get the money. John Evans escorted her from the premises, and he observed that she appeared to be kind of tipsy still. At 5:30 in the morning, Elizabeth Long saw her talking with a man in Hanbury Street, but since there was nothing suspicious about the couple, she continued on her way, hardly taking any notice. 30 minutes later, at 6 a.m., John Davis, an elderly resident, found her horrifically mutilated body lying between the steps of the fence of the backyard of the house. Her throat was slit and her murderer took her womb. If there was anything that I guess kind of good came out of this, was that through the oh gosh, I'm not good at words. I'm sorry, I'm very poorly articulated. The good that came out of this was that the media was starting to pay attention to these murderers, and it didn't go unnoticed like Mary Nichols had. Our third murder was a woman named Elizabeth Stride. Now, a little bit about Elizabeth Stride that I could find was, in 1866, she immigrated from England from Sweden. Arriving in London 3 years later, she married John Thomas Stride. The newlyweds moved to the East End of London, where they opened up a coffee shop. The couple separated, though, in 1877, which Elizabeth began residing at various common lodges. She also became involved with a man named Michael Kidney, and over the next few years began drinking heavily. She made numerous appearances before magistrates of charges of being drunk and disorderly. On Saturday, September 19th, 1888, she had spent the afternoon cleaning 2 rooms at the lodging house, for which she was paid by the deputy keeper. And by 6:30 p.m., she was enjoying a drink at the Queenhead's pub. Wait, what are we doing? We're doing true crime. We're solving the Jack the Ripper case. We're solving Jack the Ripper. We're on the third victim, Elizabeth Stride. I'm just talking a little bit about her life, what I could find, and her death. Yeah, you should be taking notes. This is going to be on the test. There were several sightings of her over the course of the next 5 hours, and by midnight, she was found her way to Barnett Street off Commercial Road. At 12:45 a.m. on September 30th, a man named Israel Schwartz saw her being attacked by a man in Gateway off Barnett Street known as Dutchfield's Yard. Schwartz, however, thought he was witnessing a domestic argument and crossed over the road to avoid getting dragged in the quarrel. However, it is highly likely that he actually saw the early stages of the murder. He seemed to have thought it was like a couple spat and didn't want to get involved. But, no, it wasn't. At 1 a.m., Louis Yes. One thing these women all have in common is that they all seem to have an alcohol problem, and they all seem to have had to turn to prostitution in order to survive. That's one thing they all seem to have in common. At 1 a.m., Louis, the steward of a club that... Yeah, basically, yeah. I suppose so. The steward of a... Our detective having trouble... I'm not a good reader. These are complicated big boy words. Anyway, Louis, the steward of a club that sighted on Dutchfield's Yard, came down on Barnett Street with his pony. Yeah, he was riding a horse. These were the good days. And turned to open the gates of Dutchfield's Yard. The pony refused to go any further, so Louis looked into the looked on the ground and saw a dark form. He tried to lift it with his whip, but couldn't, so he jumped down and struck a match. It was wet and windy, so the match only flickered for a few seconds, but that was sufficient amount of time to see a woman lying on the ground. He's so heartless. No. This is even wackier, okay? This is wacky, okay? For some reason, when he realized it was a woman on the ground, he thought it was his wife. He thought it was his wife and that she was drunk. So he went into the club, be like, hey, I think my wife's on the ground. Like, can you guys help me lift her up? And so several members went out into the yard, and by candlelight, they were able to see a pool of blood gathering beneath the woman. Yeah, he thought it was his wife. I don't know if she was, like, commonly drinking around here or something, but he thought it was his wife. And, yeah, it was just very weird. Very weird. It's kind of odd when you see a corpse on the ground and your first thought is, damn it, Rebecca, get your shit together. But, that's what he thought. Anyway, the several others went to the yard, and by candlelight, they were able to see a pool of blood gathering beneath the woman. They sent for the police and a doctor, but she was already dead. Okay, where was I? I lost my place. Shit. These are a lot of words I have to read. It was noted, though, although, just like previous cases, the woman had her throat cut, the rest of the body had not been mutilated. This led police to deduce that Louis had interrupted the killer when he turned into Dutchfield's yard. The theory is when he initially was standing in the darkness of the yard, the killer was still there, concealed by the darkness close by. Had he raised the alarm first finding the body, the chances of finding the murderer would have been... They would have caught him had he realized earlier he was looking at a dead body. Yeah, it was a dead body, not a wife. Okay, and, but the fact he went in the club to inquire about his wife gave the killer the opportunity to escape from the darkness and leave the scene. There's even a theory that Louis himself was the killer, pretending to be an innocent bystander. Some even believe the lack of mutilation is proof that the murderer was not Jack the Ripper. However, Stride's murder occurred less than 1 hour before the fourth canonical victim, Catherine Eddowes, within walking distance. So the odds that two attacks happened so short of each other is a little... I think it's the same person. Me, personally, I think it's the same person. I think Louis walked up on the killer and he panicked and ran. That's what I think. However, some people believe Louis is the killer. And going into our fourth victim that occurred on the same night, Catherine Eddowes. Catherine Eddowes was born the 14th of April, 1842. Her family moved to London when she was a young girl, but by the time she reached her mid-teens, both her parents had died and her siblings were separated. Catherine returned to live with her aunt. Later, she met a former soldier by the name of Thomas Conway. And some of the claims the couple were married, although there's no proof this has been found. She did have his initials TC tattooed on her arm. The couple would have 3 children, and they earned a meager income selling cheap books on the streets by peddlers. By the end of the 1870s, the couple moved to London. Catherine started drinking heavily, and this became a very toxic relationship, and the couple eventually split up. In 1880, Catherine gravitated towards the east of London, where she moved to Cooney's Common Lodging House. Oh my gosh, that's such a tongue twister. She met a man named John Kelly, who earned his living working at the local markets. The couple would live together as man and wife until Catherine's death in 1888. The deputy lodging keeper, Frederick Wilkinson, would later remember her fondly as a jolly woman who was often singing. On the afternoon of her murder, she intended to go borrow money from her daughter. According to Kelly's testimony, he warned her about the Whitechapel murderer, but Catherine brushed aside his fears and said, quote, "Don't you fear for me. I'll take care of myself. I shan't fall into his hands." Spoiler alert, she did. But, it was never established how she spent the rest of her afternoon, or if she visited her daughter, but she did acquire the money somehow, because at 8 p.m. she was arrested for drunkenness. Spoiler alert, she is the Jack the Ripper. That would be a plot twist. The fourth victim faked her on death to evade police. That would be a plot twist. If that were the case, Catherine deserves to not be found. Yeah, famous last words, definitely. She was taken to the police station where she was locked in the cell to sober up, and by midnight she was awoken, and oh gosh, this was so funny to me. I only found one site that said this. Okay, so I'm not sure how true this is. I'm not sure if this was slang back in the time, but apparently, when the officer escorted her out the police station, she said, "All right, good night, you old cock." I don't know if that meant something else back in the day, but that was really funny to me. That was really funny. I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh at that, but that's that's hilarious. I'm gonna start using that. I want to call people that now. Oh, thank you, Strife. Thank you for the bits. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bits for the old cock. Yeah. Yeah. At 1:35 a.m., three men, Joseph Lalande, Joseph Hayam Levy, and Harry Harris. So two Josephs and a Harris saw her talking to a man at the church passage entrance, but took little note of it. They didn't really see anything off about it. But 10 minutes later, at 1:45, police constable Alfred Watkins discovered her horrifically mutilated body lying in the darkness of Square Southwest corner. I know how to read. As with the previous victims, her throat had been cut, she'd been disemboweled, but in addition, the killer targeted her face, carving deep V's into her cheeks and eyelids, also removed and gone off with her uterus and kidney. Other murder cuts were organized and straight. However, Catherine's cuts were more jagged and erratic. Her kidney was also missing. Joseph, Officer Joseph indicated that the victim seemed to be somewhat dead. Yeah, a lot of Josephs back then. Joseph and John was a name I kind of ran into a lot in this case. However, it makes sense that Catherine's cuts were like jagged and erratic, because if we were to believe the common theory that he was walked in on when he was killing Stride, then it makes sense that he might be in a rush to do this one, to not get caught. There's more to the double murder, but we'll get into that later. Let's move on to the fifth canonical victim. Yeah, maybe not. Chances are he'd hide the bodies altogether. Yeah. Jack the Killer, Jack the Ripper, he really wanted, I would suspect the use of narcotics. Did they really have, like, I know they had drugs back in the day, but did they really have anything like, I don't know what I was asking, never mind, forget my question. But yeah, I wouldn't suspect drugs in this case. It's very obvious that there's a killer targeting prostitutes. Opium, yeah, opium. Opium was a good one back in the day. Not that I would know. I just know that was the stuff back in the day. Anyway, fifth victim, Mary Jane Kelly. Yeah, you don't go from clean, smooth throat slitting to jacket stealing ovaries in the same night with some serious shit happening. He could have been paranoid from somebody being walking up on him earlier that same night and just wanted to get it done. Or maybe you're right, because it is believed that the killer could have been a doctor. So, abusing drugs is a possibility, actually. Yes. Now that makes sense what you were saying to me. I thought you were talking about the victims. I was like, I don't know a lot about drug overdoses, but they don't slit your throat, I don't think. Okay, now that makes sense. Would you be able to remove specific organs if you were under the effects of drugs? I don't know. Like I said, I'm not really an expert in the field of drugs, so I really wouldn't know. However, I would assume if you already have the knowledge, like people have done crazier things over the effects of under the effects of drugs. So I wouldn't say it's too out of the realm of possibility. If you walked in and on, then you'd kill them with frontal stabs, not a clean throat slit. The red flag here is the sudden stealing of organs. Anyway, fifth victim, Mary Jane Kelly. She was a familiar face around Whitechapel. It was said that she was rarely seen without an entourage of women. Indubitably quite. Oh look, it's red. I like red. Red's my favorite color. Maybe me and Jack the Ripper have that in common. Oh, I didn't even put my blood on. I'm a silly goose. I didn't put my blood on or my detective pipe. I'm starting this series all wrong. Anyway. She was rarely seen without an entourage of women. I accuse Candy of being Jack the Ripper. Case closed. You ain't got no proof, okay? You can't prove anything. She was usually seen arm in arm with 2 or 3 friends. She was often seen around the neighborhood. Most of what we know is stuff she told her roommate. So she was born around 1863 in Limerick, Ireland, making her about 25 at the time of her death. She had blonde hair, blue eyes, and fair skin, and she is about 5 feet 7 inches. We know very little of her life before London. Like I said, most of what was known came from her roommate. Some sources say that they were lovers, some sources say that they were just roommates, but Joseph Barnett. She told most of what we know about her comes from him. Like, we know she was born in Irish, but spent a lot of her early years in Wales. She told Barnett that she had 6 or 7 siblings. I'm very confused as to why she does not know. You ship them? Maybe you won't for long because, I won't spoil it. But this wasn't the only victim the culprit took a victim's organs, right? No, he commonly took organs. It was very common. The only one who didn't have anything taken from them was Stride, but that's because it's believed she was walked up on during her murder. Though, okay, where was I? Oh yeah, the 6 or 7 siblings. She didn't know how many she had. It was either 6 or 7. Kelly seemed to have been in her own world at a young age. In 1876, when Kelly was 16 years old, she got married. But after 3 years of marriage, he was tragically killed in a coal mine explosion. I couldn't find much about her first marriage. Like I said, there's very little known about Kelly. Rather than returning to her parents, though, she headed to Cardiff with a cousin and became a prostitute. She moved to London in 1884. Joseph Barnett entered Kelly's life in April 8, 1887. Barnett also came from Irish parents but was born in London in 1858. He worked as a laborer on the docks for a fish market, and the two met. They went out for drinks and agreed to meet the next day. After only meeting twice, they decided to move in together. Like I said, it's unknown if they're lovers or just roommates. Some sources say they're lovers, some sources say they were just roommates. However, it's widely believed that Joseph was very much in love with her. Let's see, where was I? Alright, they first lived on George Street, but they got evicted for not paying rent and being drunk. The couple would have moved to more times before August of 1888, during the time Kelly had been working odd jobs. If it's as Candy says, he still working a lot, didn't even panicked. You'd think he'd calm down or just be able to easily remove certain organs out of experience. Sudden panic about having to murder as a serial killer seems, I don't know, off to me? I think it's more so paranoia about being caught than killing itself. Since he had been walked in on earlier that day, just an hour prior to this murder, I think he'd be a bit more paranoid about being caught, and that's why things were a lot more erratic in this kill. That's my theory. Anyway, during this time, Kelly had been working odd jobs, but then Barnett lost his job with weeks of rent piling up, as well as debts to the state for public drunkenness. It was up to Mary Kelly to bring in the money. Much to Barnett's disappointment, Kelly went back to prostitution. You see, Joseph Barnett did not like prostitution. He was not a fan, and he did not like that Mary did it. So he was very much adamant that she stayed off the streets. But after he lost his job, and it was up to her to be the breadwinner, she kind of felt like she had no choice but to go back. Despite the murders, she still had to pay rent and fees. There was bills. The relationship between Mary and Joseph became strained, not only by their financial situation, but Barnett's disapproval of Kelly's prostitution. While the reign of Jack the Ripper overshadowed Whitechapel with fear, Mary had begun to allow other prostitutes who had nowhere to go in the evenings to stay in their small home. Barnett disapproved of this and soon moved out after an argument. He didn't want her bringing more prostitutes under his roof. He was very against the whole thing and didn't want anything to do with prostitutes and wanted Mary to stop being a prostitute too. However, if this ends with society with Jack the Ripper all along, I would be very disappointed. Oh my gosh, yes. Totally. Anyway, because Barnett couldn't take it anymore, he soon moved out, and in the meantime, Kelly continued to allow other women to sleep over until she took lodgings on Dorset Street on November 7th. November 8th, Barnett visited Kelly at 7 p.m., then left on good terms. At 7:45, the next time he ever saw Kelly again was to identify her body. Kelly's death was the most gruesome out of all the victims. excuse me, I had to get a sip of tea while I was being all British for this case. Anyway, when authorities entered her room, her clothes were neatly folded in a chair, her boots sat in front of the fireplace, and she was laying in her bed. Her right arm had been partially disconnected from the torso. Her legs were spread wide at right angles. With previous victims, there were entrails and organs piled right to the right of the body. This time, there was other lacerations and organ displacements. Kelly's uterus, kidneys, one breast placed beneath her head. Her left lung was torn and her heart was completely missing. Occasionally, it looks like you fall asleep completely. The entire detective's office is just completely silent. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Whenever those pauses are typically me getting something to drink. I'm sorry. Alright. Alright, where was I? Yeah, organs. Her heart is completely missing. The Ripper had even taken flaps of skin, which he had stripped from the thighs, abdomen, and piled them on the bedside table. Organs. Oh my gosh, Captain, are you a cannibal? We can talk about cannibals, so there's a cannibal case I'm very interested in. I'm guessing he was pissed off at her for protecting prostitutes. Yes, it definitely seems that way. Kelly seemed to be a very nice person who was just trying to protect people who were in danger. I don't see why that would be an issue, honestly. Cannibalism implies we're all humans. Hello, fellow human. Yeah. I mean, I'm technically made out of candy, and I eat candy. But, we'll unpack that later. Now's not the day, okay? Let's go. Every feature of Kelly's face was irregularly slashed. But is it living candy? Then I will not... I plead the fifth. No further questions. Because, like, pigs are made of flesh. I'm made of flesh. So if I eat bacon... Oh, I see where you're going. I see where you're going. I don't know, Captain. I don't know the right answer. Bacon is good stuff, though. So maybe it's okay to be a cannibal. Anyway, every feature of Kelly's face was irregularly slashed. Her nose, her ears, her cheeks, her eyebrows were all partially removed. Her lips are sliced multiple times. It's commonly believed he went this far because, being in her house rather than a dark alleyway, he'd be less likely to get caught, so he took his time and, I guess, in lack of better words, had fun with this one, I guess. I don't know. But let's go into the investigation. Because there's a lot we didn't go over when discussing the victims that we will discuss now. As you can imagine, the 1800s had little to no forensic investigation and definitely no way to investigate DNA. Due to the way the women were murdered, police deduced that the killer was either a doctor or someone with common anatomical knowledge. I know how to say my words, dang it. September 7th, 1888, the Scotland Yard received a letter known as the Dear Boss Letters. It reads, Dear Boss, I keep hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet. I have laughed when they look so clever and talked about being on the right track. That joke about the leather apron gave me real fits. I am down on whores and shan't quit ripping them. until I do get buckled. Grand work on the last job was, I gave the lady no time to squeal. How can they catch me now? I love my work and I want to start again. You will soon hear of me with my funny little games. I saved some of the proper red stuff in a ginger beer bottle over the last job to write it with thick like glue. I can use it. Red ink is fit enough, I hope. Haha. The next job I do, I shall clip the lady's ears off and send it to the police officers just for jolly. Wouldn't you? Keep this letter back till I do a bit more work. Then I give it out straight. My knife is so nice and sharp. I want to get to work right away if I get the chance. Good luck. Yours truly, Jack the Ripper. Don't mind me giving the trade name. P.S. Wasn't good enough to post this before. I got all the red ink off my hands. Curse it, no luck yet. They say I'm a doctor now. Ha ha. And that was the letter. And I don't know, it's awkward. With the way he says ha ha, I feel like Jack the Ripper's totally that guy that writes LMFAO and doesn't, with a deadpan straight face, he didn't even crack a smile. You know, that's the kind of man I think Jack the Ripper was. But, the Dear Boss letter was thought to be a prank, but started getting taken a bit more seriously after the double murder of Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes. As the author of the letter mentioned clipping the next victim's ears, Eddowes was found with an earlobe severed. Yeah, ink. Yeah, ink. Another odd thing about the double murder, a piece of Catherine Eddowes' apron was found. I'm sorry, I keep getting tongue-tied. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm dead, LMFAO. I'm dead inside. The odd thing about... Okay, where was I? Oh, yeah. A piece of Catherine Eddowes' apron was found around the corner of her body, lying underneath a piece of anti-Semitic graffiti written in chalk. This is known as the Golston Street graffiti. It read, "The Jews are men that will not be blamed for nothing." And I looked into it. I looked into every victim's backstory. I could not find any link between the victims and Judaism. However, I did read that at the time, Whitechapel was experiencing a growing number in Jewish immigrants at the time. This graffiti is very strange, so there's multiple theories about it. Some people believe the Ripper wrote an anti-Semitic message to throw police off his trail, as the women in Judaism have no connection. Some believe the graffiti is unrelated to the murder, and Ripper leaving evidence was a coincidence, saying he dropped it by mistake at that spot. It's kind of unknown, but it is strange. Some people believe he could have been a Jewish man who wrote something anti-Semitic to throw the police off his trail. We don't know. It's just a very odd thing about the night of the double murders. Shortly after the double murder, another letter was sent on October 1st, 1888. This letter was known as the Saucy Jack letters. It reads, "I was not coddling, dear boss, when I gave you the tip. You'll hear about Saucy Jackie's work tomorrow. Double event this time. Number 1 squealed a bit, but couldn't finish straight off. Had not got time to get the ears off for the police. Thanks for keeping the last letter back until I got to work again. Jack the Ripper." It's worth noting that part of Eddowes' ear was found severed at the crime scene. Some believe this was an unintentional result of facial mutilations that the killer performed. Others argue that this had to have been deliberate. Another topic of debate has been whether this was sent prior to the murders or afterwards. He doesn't need more sauce. Yeah, no more sauce. Some suggest that the message was sent before the news of the murder hit local papers, thus substantiating the fact that it was written by somebody with first-hand knowledge of the crime. There's a third letter. Now, it's important that you know Catherine Eddowes' kidneys were missing. Along with a box containing half a human kidney, a letter was sent to George Lusk, head of the Whitechapel Vigilante Committee. On October 16th, it reads, "From hell, Mr. Lusk. Sorry I sent you half the kidney I took from one woman, preserved it for you to other piece I fried and ate it. The other piece I fried and ate it. It was very nice. I may send you the bloody knife it took out if you only wait a little while longer. Signed, Catch me when you can, Mr. Lusk." Now, this letter is very different from the other letters, and like things are spelled incorrectly. It's definitely not the same writing style that Jack the Ripper uses, and it was confirmed to be a prank by a medical student, or it's widely believed it was a prank by a medical student. I definitely believe this one was a fake. Wild of them to use a human kidney. I mean, shoosh. If this was back in today's time, this guy would definitely have a pranking channel. Now, eyewitnesses describe the killer to be maybe between 25 to 35 years old, roughly 5'5" to 5'7", had a mustache, and was seen with a dark overcoat and a dark hat. Now, the suspects. There have been countless suspects, so let's just narrow it down to like just a few people. There's Indubitably. Definitely would be a wild YouTube channel, that's for sure. I murdered a stranger, not clickbait. Anyway, so we're just gonna narrow it down to a couple of the victims, because honestly there is a lot. Let's go with Walter Sickert. Walter Sickert was an influential British painter. We know he had a very considerable interest in the case, and even allegedly rented a room that was believed to be used by Jack the Ripper previously. Many of his paintings do look like they were inspired by the murders. A potential motive is that some people believe he was impotent, which led him to a hatred of women. However, there's no proof of that, and in fact, his first wife had divorced him, citing adultery in her petition for divorce. In addition, it's believed that he had several mistresses. A DNA test was even funded on numerous stamps and envelopes that she believes Sickert had licked, and compared to DNA that was found on Ripper's letters. Interestingly, a possible match was found. Critics, however, have pointed out that DNA comparisons focused on mitochondrial DNA, which could be shared by anything between 1% or 10% of the population, so this really didn't prove anything. Not to mention, it's not confirmed whether any of the letters are real. We're still not sure if any of those were actually Jack the Ripper. And with Sickert's fascination in the murder, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could have sent some hoax letters, if that is, in fact, his DNA on the letters. Because there was a lot of hoaxes, I only mentioned 3 letters, but there was a lot of letters and a lot of hoaxes. Now next is like the most commonly believed who's the killer, and that's James Maybrick. He was a well-off cotton merchant in Liverpool. Him living far from the killings leads some to believe he's innocent. However, I'm pretty sure all these deaths were done on a weekend, so it's not out of the realm of possibility for him to, go to the Whitechapel just for the weekend or something. Not to mention, his death did coincide with the killings ending, as he did die just a year after the killings. Maybrick died of arsenic poisoning, and interesting enough, I will get this sentence out, marks my words. Oh my goodness, I'm so bad at speaking, I'm so sorry. Maybrick died of arsenic poisoning, and interestingly, his wife, Florence Maybrick, was tried and convicted of his murder. Though I looked into it a little bit, and I think the evidence against her was really shaky. All they could prove is that she bought arsenic, or something that had arsenic in it, but thank you. I got this. The only thing they proved is she bought something that had arsenic in it, but that's really all they had against her, and she was tried and convicted of his murder. Now, he did die of arsenic poisoning, so I see the connection, but that's really all I could find that they had against her. Arsenic. He died of arsenic poisoning. What makes Maybrick widely believed to be the killer is his diary that was signed Jack the Ripper. The diary allegedly has intimate details of the killings. Tests on the diary seem to roughly match the era of the killings. However, there is reason to believe this diary was forged, as the man who discovered it, Mike Barrett, admitted to writing the diary himself, then later retracted his confession. Wait, what do you mean then? What do you mean? The wife purchased an item? Yeah, she purchased something. I forget what it was. It had arsenic in it. It was like an arsenic item. That's all. I forget. I really do forget. But that's really all that they had against her, was that she purchased arsenic. Which I see the connection, but it's still shaky. As I'm pretty sure arsenic was a very common thing to buy back in the day. However, even though the diary itself, if it's liquid arsenic then lethal amount, then I think we can be suspicious. Oh, I'm not saying you can't be suspicious. I'm just saying I feel like you would have to have more to go off of to try somebody of murder. Like, if somebody is stabbed, you don't convict somebody who happens to have a knife. There's other things. However, granted, I wasn't there. All I could find was that she had purchased arsenic. So we had it's to my understanding that Maybrick was cheating on her, so she was cheating on him after she found out. And then after Maybrick's death, his brother found out about the infidelity and accused her of killing him and reported her to the police and stuff. And I guess her cheating on her husband also played a role in a character thing, oh, you're a bad person because you cheated on your husband, so you must also be a killer? I don't know. No, I mean, I was making a joke. She purchased it. Oh, I see. I see. I suppose if you are looking to buy arsenic and you're hey, I need a lethal amount of arsenic at the store, I think that's enough to be suspicious. Oh gosh. However, because the diary is kind of shaky evidence, because the man who discovered it was I wrote it, and then he recanted and was I was just kidding around, I didn't write it. There is another item that links Maybrick to the case. A gold antique watch, which on the inside was found with the initials of which the initials of the 5 victims of Jack the Ripper were found scratched into the watch, together with the signature J. Maybrick and the words, "I am Jack." Like, will this kill, say, a middle-aged man with rapidly without resistance? Yeah, that would be a little suspicious. I'd ask some questions there if I was the clerk. I would be a little like, why you wanna know? Yo, who's the GB flying around? Oh, that's Akari. She's on the free VTube studio thing. If I want her gone, I'll have to pay for it, but I'm a poor person. As with the diary, the watch has been subjected to scientific analysis, and the scratches have been found to be compatible with the time period of 1888 to 1889, although these findings have been disputed because of the sudden appearance of the watch so soon after the diary was made public, aroused great suspicion, especially after Mike Barrett's weird thing about the diary. We're not sure if he wrote it or not. Alright, it's do you do poison? Yeah. Where was I? It is possible that they were created at the exact same time. The usefulness of these items are proving that they're genuine, which has yet to be done. However, so far we haven't had any reason to think the watch is a hoax, but we do have reason to think the diary is a hoax because of the way Mike Barrett is and being like, "Hey, I wrote this," and then we like, "Oh, JK." It's like, hey, which is it, man? Why would you lie about writing that if you didn't write that? But, the watch has too much time. We can't trust it. Yeah. And last but not least, my personal favorite suspect and who I believe murdered at least one of the victims, Joseph Barnett. Yes, the man who lived with the 5th victim, Mary Kelly. Joseph Barnett was a prime witness questioned by the police after Mary Kelly's murder. He and Kelly had allegedly been lovers since April of May, I'm so stupid. April of 1887. Like I said, it's unclear whether or not they were lovers. Some sources say they are, some sources say they ain't. However, they recently separated after an argument about Kelly allowing other prostitutes to stay in their apartment at night. The theory put forward is after Barnett lost his job, Mary began I know how to say my words. The theory put forward is that after Barnett lost his job, Mary began to support herself via prostitution again, and Barnett began to kill neighborhood prostitutes to try to scare her off the streets. Some sources say they were lovers. Already. Either way, it's widely believed, regardless of whether they were dating or if they were roommates, that Joseph was definitely in love with her. He even once referred to her as his wife, even though they were never married. Joseph Barnett's physical description tallies very well with the number of witness descriptions, particularly in height. He was 5'7", his age was 30, his build was medium, he had a fair complexion, and he had a mustache. Remember earlier when I was like, hey, he matches the description pretty well, I'd say. And his link to Mary Kelly, what is her name? Mary Kelly. I'm so sorry, I'm bad at words. I really am so sorry about that. His link with Mary Kelly could explain why the killing ceased after her murder. Though the mystery of Kelly's locked door, it was locked when the police arrived, indicated the killer either had a key or knew where the key was commonly kept. Mary Kelly is that one? So it could be explained by Barnett's possessing a key or knowing where the key is kept in the room. And as he knew Mary Kelly so well, that's not out of the realm of possibility. He even matches the FBI's profile for the killer. There's even a theory that Jack the Ripper is a female. This is known as the Jane the Ripper or Jill the Ripper theory. Seeing as everyone was searching for a man, Jane the Ripper would be able to walk through unnoticed by police. A midwife would have the anatomical knowledge the killer had. However, this is odd as the eyewitnesses state they did see a man. So either if Jack the Ripper was Jane the Ripper, let's say if, it sounds like a fanfic for some reason. What part? The Jill the Ripper? The Jane the Ripper? There's a female thing? But, I forget where. Trying to pull a what if instead of trying to help. Yeah, the female thing. Yeah. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Like I said, all the eyewitnesses claim they saw a man. So unless she was working with a man or she was just targeting this unlucky dude, like this dude would like go up to prostitutes and she was like, you know what? I'm gonna frame you for murder. And she just never successfully got him caught. Maybe. Let's say she was working with a man. That makes two Rippers. Yeah, the Jack and Jill Rippers. They're still Jack the Ripper, yeah. There's also a theory that American serial killer H.H. Holmes is Jack the Ripper, but I really would like to go out on that theory on a different stream because I have a lot of opinions on that one, My final thoughts, I don't know who Jack the Ripper is, I'm not sure. Some of the suspects seem far-fetched, some of them do have merit. I think since the murder stopped after the 5th victim, couldn't the last victim have been Jack the Ripper? Why? Mary Kelly was trusted by the prostitutes. I mean, like I said, she was lending her home to prostitutes, being like, oh, you can stay in my place and stay safe. So that's actually an interesting theory. I don't buy that Joseph Barnett was killing prostitutes to scare Mary Kelly off the streets. However, I do totally buy. Yeah. I do totally buy that the last victim was definitely Joseph Barnett, I believe. I definitely think that he killed Mary, because the last victim was not Jack the Ripper's MO. I don't see someone as cautious as Mary Kelly, who was inviting prostitutes to stay with her because it was such a scary time. I don't see her inviting a customer into her own home. I don't see her doing anything like that. And Joseph Barnett knew where she lived. He was very close to her. If he wanted in, she would probably invite him in because they were at the very least friends. However, it was looked like Mary Kelly was killed in her sleep too. Like I said, her clothes were neatly folded. She was laying in bed. We believe she was killed in her sleep. And hers was a lot more gruesome than the others. which suggests to me, as a lot of crimes I've looked into, the murders that are overkill are typically the most personal ones. And Barnett did have a very close personal relationship with Mary Kelly. Hey Candy, wanted to check out your stream. Oh, thank you. Thank you for stopping by. However, I don't think, if we were to go into the theory that maybe somebody found out Mary Kelly was the killer, somebody found out and killed her, I don't think we have reason to believe that she had the anatomical knowledge that the killer had. She was actually very known to be a very sweet person, however, that could be very deceiving. They believe because Joseph Barnett was a fish porter that he would have some crude anatomical knowledge. I definitely believe Joseph Barnett killed Mary Kelly. As far as the other victims, I would say James Maybrick, but there's some fishy stuff about him. Like I said, the person who discovered the diary saying, hey, that was actually a hoax, I wrote it. Then retracting that and being like, I was just kidding, that's a very real diary. However, we have no reason to be suspicious of the pocket watch just yet. Apologies, Twitch is keeping me on a full minute ad break, so I might miss what you said. Yeah, I am so sorry. I do not know why Twitch is like that. I tried to see if I could edit it to make the commercials a lot less, because as much as people tell me they get commercials, I really should be getting more money than I am. I've made like 80 cents off ads alone. You're good, not your fault. Thank you. I'm sorry. Still, I wish I could change it. People get ads a lot here. Yeah. So, like I said, like over hundreds of people have been suspected to be the killer. But the ones I left out were flimsy ones. Like there was this man who just so happened to be insane, but there was nothing connecting him to the kills other than like he lived in that neighborhood and he was insane and had frequented mental asylums. I forget his name too, some Kuminski? I forget. Anyway, yeah, there was a lot, and even with the victims I chose, they have little to no connection, I don't think. Like, oh shoot, I forgot to even, did I even mention? Yeah, there was this one suspect who liked to remove organs from prostitutes, but he was pretty harmless, so I'm sure it's fine. Yeah, I'm sure. He's chill. Like Walter Sickert, the first suspect I mentioned that just had a very big fascination with the killings. It's believed he wasn't even in Britain at all during the murders, because it's believed he was in France at the time. But he did have a fascination with the murders. I heard he even tried to dress as Jack the Ripper, like this dude was cosplaying before cosplay was even a thing. I didn't find too many sources, so I didn't mention that earlier, other than like his obsession with the murder, which I can't fault him for that either. Jack the Ripper was one of the first things that sparked my interest in true crime, so I ain't out here like cosplaying and glorifying him. No, he's a sick, messed up man. If I saw Jack the Ripper and he was like, "Hey, I'm Jack the Ripper," I would look him dead in the eyes and say, "You're a silly goose, mister. Murder is wrong, and I'm not ashamed to admit it." But yeah, Walter Sickert, very flimsy. James Maybrick could be. There's still a lot. I definitely would like Mike Barrett to I guess, elaborate on why he would confess to writing the diary if he also claims he didn't write the diary. From what I looked into, I'm Jack the Ripper. Don't look at me. Yeah. To this society would just be another internet tough guy. Oh, definitely. Jack the Ripper. He definitely thought a lot of himself, I think. Judging by the letters, which I believe the first two are real. I do. Because they definitely had intimate knowledge of the cases. However, we can't confirm that. We just can't. And I did not just accidentally hit terminate their message. I mean, I think a lot of myself too, but... yeah. I think Jack the Ripper's on a whole nother level. He's a little wild, I say. Like, just kind of like definitely why killing Jack the Ripper? His motive is so unclear. I guess you could argue he doesn't like prostitutes, but... Oh, so he's one of them bad boys. No, not in a cool way. He doesn't have a motorcycle. He just has a mustache and a top hat. He looks like a nerd. A nerd. Jack the Ripper is a nerd. I'd push him in a locker myself. We don't know he doesn't have one. Oh, we know. I know. But, Joseph Barnett is my favorite suspect. He's the only one with a connection to the victims. He's the only person with a clear motive. I really like him. At least for Mary Kelly's murder. I think he's probably the best, suit, as hers was definitely overkill. A lot more gruesome. Definitely a bit more personal, I think. But, yeah, there's a lot of theories as to who it is. Like I said, they believe H.H. Holmes is Jack the Ripper. Which I would like to go into that on Divin stream. Favorite suspect is not my go-to term for the guy who probably did it. Is that a weird way to say it? It was J.K. Rowling. No, how could you betray us like this? No. It was bad enough your Twitter, but now this? Shame. But, yeah, I would definitely like to go into the Jack the Ripper H.H. Holmes theory another time, because it is an interesting theory. I also just personally have my issues with it, because it's like, a lot of people with serial killers, they like to treat it like it's a Marvel universe, like they're all connected somehow. A lot of them aren't. I'm just gonna say it. A lot of them aren't. Some people are just messed up. Your Honor, the prosecution would like the favorite witness on the stand. The favorite suspect on the stand. It was the friends we made along the way. Yes. Speaking of friends, my idea of doing this was I wanted to be kind of like a VTuber of BuzzFeed Unsolved, where I have a friend here, but I also have no friends, so it's a little... I'm very awkward about asking people to do stuff, and it's like, I know people probably don't want to commit to a series that's not even on their channel, so I haven't bothered anybody about it. Even if I can have one friend on it, I think it'd be nice to have a rotation of friends, because I feel like I bounce off better when I have another person I'm talking to. So yeah, I would really like to have, like, I guess, a partner on this series. What would your co-host do? Basically be like, I guess, the Shane Madej of the gang. Basically, Just a fellow chatter? Yeah, they would just be a fellow chatter. I would still do all the research and, I would tell them about the case. They would just, give me their opinion and stuff. Sign me up for the next one. Oh, sure. If we wanna join, that'd be cool. Cause, like, I was definitely nervous about this, and I feel like I would do good if I had, like, a co-host, or at least a rotation, where it's like, I tell this friend about a case this week, this friend about a case the next. I'm still not sure what I'm gonna do until I find a perfect fit. I would like to suggest I've been the co-host due to the amount of messages I sent. Yeah, you've definitely been the co-host of the first episode. I'm not sure what case I'm gonna do next, but I would definitely prefer covering vintage cases. It's a lot of fun. Anyway, thank you all for stopping by. Wait, let me check something. I probably hit a bunch of keys. Oh, perfect. We can.
Yeah, we'll share our home address for French fries.
It's easy to.
Let's see. It's been a long time since I've done a raid. Let me check. Let me check to see how many people I have. Okay, yeah. I'll do a raid. At least, let's see, how do I do that? It's been so long. I'm such a dummy. Paste. Is it this one? Huh. Is it this? Is that correct? I don't know. I don't think that's correct. The last of this is just me being baffled by like what a raid is. Let me just Google how to. I've done it before. Oh, okay. Let's see. Use raid without any spaces. Oh, without any space. I swear, what is that the right? And then the username separate. Raid my will to live. Let me see if this works. Or if I'm just a dummy. You should be on your Twitch dashboard as well. Really? Let me see if this works. Does this work? Oh, it did. Okay, good. Thank you. I can be a buffoon. Thank you.